This time we are going to see if we can make 2 crappy oil pans into 1 good deep sump 7-quart pan that will fit a big block in a Chrysler C-body. Okay, so first what we should probably talk about is what makes these specifically C-body Mopar oil pans. It's also what makes these desirable for the A-body crowd to run a big block in those cars with the, the factory K-frame and the factory steering linkage. It is this indentation that you see in both of these pans. This gives clearance for the Fitment arm and the steering linkage, so you don't run into interference there. The 2 factory casting numbers or stamp numbers that you're going to find these under is either 699 or 187. This one I had laying around. This one does not have any of the baffling in it. I did already kind of do some dent repair on this one before. We're going to use this as kind of a donor to fix this section. This one actually has the baffles in it, and for 30 bucks, how can you go wrong? This one came off a marketplace. This whole section here leaks. Cut this section off the bottom of this pan and replace it with this section off of this pan, which is going to involve welding, which, as you're going to find out, is not my forte. It's going to make a good sacrificial oil pan for this project. First things first, let's just clean this down to bare metal. Fitment's going to be an issue, so I'm going to try and cut as much of the sump off of this thing as I can. Flap discs are great, especially if you put a fresh one on. They really rip through the layers of paint. But we're down to clean metal. It's not perfect, but it's reasonably dent-free. But we're going to try and cut this as deep as we can, so I've got material to work with when I'm grafting it to the other pan. Voila! Cut line. I'm almost better probably do like a plunge cut, leave the corners so everything holds stable, like right in here. Don't cut here. I think is probably the better way to do this, and just kind of take the main sections out. And then I can come through and I can just quick zip the corners out, and the sump should come out in one nice piece. Hopefully. Well, it ain't perfect, but I think it came out okay. I'm not really necessarily worried about the final cut line just yet. I just want to clean up the edges of it, some slag and stuff like that, just to make sure I'm not cutting myself when I'm figuring this out. There's a little butchery here in the corner, but like I said, I cut it a little extra long, hoping I would have some extra to play with, but let's keep going. That first cut line seems like it's probably pushing, having enough material there. So I went another 1/2 inch up, because that's about as close as I can get to where this bung is here on the side. I don't know if maybe that's the drain, what would be the drain plug. And they had some kind of an auxiliary return line to the pan, possibly. I mean, because obviously that's too far up to effectively drain the oil out of it. I'm guessing it's a return line. I kind of water tested it, and this whole section here was leaking. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that is. If that's brazed in there, or if that's some kind of schputz that they put in. I don't know. But that's all got to go. Well, for some reason, it didn't record my first cut here as I was having to go through the fitting. As you can see, it got a little off course. It's coming up a little high here, but better too high into it, and I can come back down. Also, see right there, I almost got my finger with the death wheel. Got the glove, but not the finger. 9 fingers are more than enough for anybody. Well, that's a mess. Check that out. You can kind of see where the bung was. There's a weld in there that's going to have to be ground smooth. Reasonably okay. What we're left with now is the sump section off the stock pan, rough cut, and the upper portion of the modified pan, the home modified pan that I picked up that had a bad sump. So now we just got to mate these two together, and somehow we need to make sure that it's a 7-inch deep sump. Initial fit. Well, it's not great. It's way off here. We'll figure this out as we go. But what's most important right now is to make sure that this is capable of being 7 inches deep. So I'm going to slide the tape measure up here. Right there on this side is 7 inches. So I'm going to try and hold that in place with some tape. And then adjust the other side so we can really see where we're going to be at. I don't know if you can see that, but that right there is 7 inches on this side. Like I said, right now all we really want to do is try and hold this thing in place. The significant thing is, you can see up in there, there is plenty of meat on both the sump portion and the lower pan for these to be worked into place. So I'm going to say we have got something to work with here that in the end can be some work. Maybe there is an easier way, but what the hell? What else do I got to do? This is where I run into my first snag. So as I was kind of laying out some reference marks and deciding where I was going to start cutting and trimming and how I was going to do this, I remembered why I replaced the pan that I got the sump off of. The drain plug is stripped. It could just be as simple as me getting the correct nut to work with, a traditional drain plug and welding that to the inside of the pan. But until I do that, I'm just going to put this aside for a couple of days. But for you guys, it's going to be, I know, it's like a horrible magic trick. I got my drain plug kit, I got a haircut, and it's now daylight out. I also rebuilt a couple of Edelbrock carburetors over the last couple of days while I waited for this. So let me show you what this is and how I'm going to use it. So what I picked up, I found on Amazon. It is from Shift Technology Products. It is part number K032. You can find these from a lot of different manufacturers. I've used very similar products in the past to put drain plugs in transmission pans. If you don't want to drop the pan every time you want to change fluid, having a plug makes that a lot easier. What these come with would first be the nut that goes on the inside of the pan. That's after, of course, you've drilled a hole for the plug with like a step bit. There's an O-ring that fits in the base of this that would go down on the pan, and then you've got this fitting that comes from the outside of the pan threads into this. The two of these then sandwich the pan, and you've got a brass plug here that is now what you remove to drain the fluid. This is like $13. How I'm going to use it, because I really don't want to have this kind of gnarly fitting, I want to reuse a standard drain plug on this. Luckily, threads on this are the same as what's required for the standard drain plug. So I am just going to weld this to the inside of the pan. Once I remove the factory threaded nut, I guess you would say, that's tack welded into this, that's what's all screwed up. So once I knock this out of here, clean this up, probably going to weld this to the inside of the pan. So then I've got the nut on the outside, or the drain plug on the outside. I suppose if I put it on the outside, I might get more fluid out of it because it's going to be at the lowest point. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. That escalated quickly. I'm in the process of just trying to grind out the factory, let's call it a nut flange, that was welded to the inside of the sump. Things got out of hand. It was kind of a mess. So I ended up just cutting out the whole section and making this patch piece. And I'm going to weld in, and we're going to drill a brand new hole for the drain. Got kind of in the groove with it so much I didn't even record it. My apologies, but you know, it's pretty straightforward stuff. So let's get this welded in. All right, the nut and the drain plug are now in. Looks pretty good on the outside, patch in, but I kind of pride myself on this channel of showing the mistakes along the way and things like that. So looks pretty good on the outside. Looks pretty bad on the inside. I am not a welder. Apparently I'm not much of a grinder either. Had a few issues. Blew through it a couple of times because it is just sheet metal. It is what it is. It is not leaking. It is solidly in place. But yeah, well, let's focus on the outside, shall we? Yes. Trimmed off a chunk of the sump. So I kind of marked that line around the inside of the two of them. It's going to take a little creativity because, grab the camera and show you this, get a little closer. Got it kind of taped in place. It's not bad on this side, but let me show you the big problem here. Well, it's even to this side. It's wide by about 1/4 of an inch, while the depth on this thing is exactly where it needs to be. So there's going to have to be some gap fill in there. I'm also probably going to have to take about 1/4 inch strip out of this somewhere to shift that over just a touch to make it line up, hopefully at least a little bit better. Well, I've been clipping along at this. The fitment was worse than I actually realized. And I haven't done a whole lot of welding in my life. Probably the big mistake I made was this side lined up really well. So I just kind of got this all lined up, welded it in, chased some pinholes. I probably shouldn't have finished this off because I got a lot of fitting to do around all the other sides. I had to cut about 1/8 of an inch out of this side of the sump to move this in to line up better with this side of the pan. Of course, I cut it on the radius, so that made the gap here even larger, so I'm going to have to probably come up with something to fill that gap. That's pretty significantly off. I'm thinking I'm going to have to do like a pie cut of some sort here, get this booger out of here and work this in, and maybe work this out a little bit so they match up. I blew a humongous hole in the side of the pan right here, so I just laid a bunch of booger welds on top of booger welds. Gonna grind that down until it becomes not a hole anymore. So it's been a little ugly going. I've got some Frankenstein cuts happening on this thing to try and get it all to fit with the lower pan. I've got tacks all the way around on this thing, and it's a lot of work to go, and a lot of gaps and things. I did make myself some copper paddles, I guess you call these. One thing I do know about welding is weld does not stick to copper. So when you've got spots where maybe you've blown through and you're looking to give it some backing, you come up with something like this, which is basically just copper pipe from the hardware store, and kind of heat it up and manipulate it around to make a couple of different things to get in tight spots and curvatures and flat spots that maybe you got to kind of get past something and get into. But you basically just, let's say we were trying to fill this with weld. That lays in there. You put your welds in, and then you can pull this out because the weld won't stick to it, and it gives it something to back it. And you can fill a pretty good hole with these things. The right way to do it is spend a lot of time cutting and trimming and fitting, so it's a good fit to begin with. I don't have a whole lot of fabrication skills. Using the term skill for anything that I'm doing is probably the wrong term. I just kind of hack and slash my way through it, and at some point things get done. So we're going to keep plugging away at this, and hopefully we got a pan in the end. Now, like I pointed out, there's a pretty good sized gap right here, and if I learned anything from the chaos that I did on the rest of it, I spend a little time fitting a piece here, and things are going to go much better. Here's the piece that I cut, trimmed, and kind of worked. Got a couple of magnets on the inside of the sump. And you can see, I mean, it's not perfect, but that fills the gap pretty well. And to do some cleanup and stuff around here, but I think that's gonna solve that problem pretty well. It is tacked into place, such as it is. Hasn't gotten any prettier since any of the other stuff. There's quite a big mess happening right there, but I can fix that. But from just an overall how are we doing so far standpoint, it's fitting pretty well, and I can work with that. I've got the extra capacity that I'm looking for. I've got the nut welded in, so I got a drain plug that's not going to be stripped. Got a mosquito, first mosquito of the year. So now we will finish the full weld and grinding, a lot of grinding. I've gone a couple of rounds, and it's pretty easy to blow through this stuff, especially when you really don't know what you're doing. But I've gone a couple of rounds, as you can see, and I'm now chasing pinholes because it's really easy to blow through this stuff. So what I've done, or how I do this, got a flashlight, and I kind of hold it in the back side of the pan, and then I kind of target in on where those are, so it's a little easier to hit with the tack weld. And slowly eliminating these. So I'll give you another one to show you. I mean, there's plenty. I mean, you can see I've got plenty of marks around this thing that I'm chasing. There's one there. And you got to get the light just right to see the one next to it. Boom. So I'm tacking this thing in, cleaning up the mess. There's a lot of grinding that's going on. But nobody's surprised by that, are they really? I can't imagine they are. And so I'm taking a look at this. We're taking a look at this. This is kind of the worst area over here. This is where I had to do all those cuts to try and bring this stuff together. I'm not done yet. I will try and clean this up a little bit better, make it more respectable, but it's going to be what it's going to be. You know, my abilities are what they are. But in the end, I've got what I wanted, which is a deeper sump pan. I looked for this welder specifically. It's a Lincoln SP135 Plus, and it runs off a household current, which I don't have 220, but it is infinitely adjustable both in wire feed and heat. You know, you don't have just like 1, 2, 3, 4 settings. You know, you can dial this thing pretty much all the way in, which is going to come in handy for me in the end. When I bought that welder, it had an almost new 10-pound roll of 030 wire, which is a little too much for doing sheet metal. You want like 023, 025. Matches more the 18 gauge type stuff that I'm going to be welding. So that was probably a big portion of why I was blown through in a lot of places. So I will make that change, and hopefully that makes doing things like this a little easier. That's about as far as I'm going to take this in this video. If you haven't already, if you could subscribe to the channel, it would be much appreciated. Comments, likes. If you'd comment and like on some of these other videos, that would be fantastic too. That one's actually pretty good. In the end, it's better than when I started. That's good enough for me. But again, I do appreciate you tuning in. I'm Corey. This is Buckle Up Garage. Later.